Good evening and welcome to the April 27th, 2023 regular session of the Milford School Committee meeting. This meeting is being broadcast by Milford TV and copies can be obtained at the request of this board or through central office. Hello everybody, good to see everybody. Our first agenda item tonight is our student representative update. Ms. Janssens.
Hi, thank you. So first of all, I'll start with a few events coming up. So there's the junior prom being held this Saturday. And on top of that, we also have all of the AP tests starting in the next few weeks. So the prom is a nice little distraction from that, a little fun before that all. In other news, the Student Advisory Council met on Monday. So this is a group of high school students who meet with the principal probably every other month, every few months to discuss student issues, student matters. So in previous meetings, we've discussed student mental health and trying to have better access to support within our school. But in this meeting, our discussions were more about making the school more clean, more comfortable, because our learning environment is very important. It's important to have pride in our learning spaces, make us want to be there, make us want to go to school and learn. So one component of that is just the matter of cleanliness within our school. So I don't know if you guys have walked around the school, but there are various stains all around the ceilings and walls, like brown water stains that aren't very pleasing to look at. There's I know down by that hallway there's like a hole in the ceiling that sometimes trash gets thrown up there, so it's just the students were discussing just ways that we can tackle that. And another focus was on the bathrooms, because there are issues with students loitering in the bathrooms between classes, issues of people vaping in the bathrooms, and just overall cleanliness, as well as some like broken stall locks within the bathrooms and some sink and soap dispensers that don't work, which students kind of just know to avoid which ones just because they've been out of order for so long. And so we were kind of hoping to bring up more discussions on how to make our school more cleanly, nicer place to be. Another topic of discussion were the ideas of pathways in our course advisory, and so we discussed a lot about finding ways to update it so students are more aware of everything that's offered, everything that's on the table, especially for for 8th graders that are coming into high school. One of the changes that we discussed was trying to help these 8th graders map out their entire 4 years of high school, go into high school and map out their classes with a goal in mind, sort of an end goal in mind. And so this could include pathways such as a biomedical pathway where you're taking a certain PLTW class every single year with kind of an end goal in mind. And there was a lot of positive feedback on this idea. All the students were very interested in this, just because a lot of us were upperclassmen, and we've found in recent years that we've heard about classes that kind of we regret not taking, that we just didn't know about. There's some really cool offerings in our school, and they're really good programs that go all through the 4 years of high school that just haven't been very well advertised. So we just think that planning it out with the 4 years in mind rather than picking year by year and just kind of losing out on opportunities because of this is just something that we want to discuss a little bit more and work towards. Segueing a little bit, so this is my last meeting here as the student representative. I don't know, it's been 3 years or something, and so I just wanted to reflect on my time here briefly. So I guess when I first started as a student rep, I was just really interested in the idea of being on live TV. And although I enjoy talking about upcoming events like prom and other exciting news, I think what's made the difference for me was like the issues that I've brought to the table, and seeing some of the things that I've presented get addressed. And I think that was something that was really positive for me. It made me feel like my voice was heard and made me feel like I could make positive change. And this is actually something I wrote about in one of my supplemental essays for college, about how this experience has helped me grow and learn to be an advocate, and that's something that I want to continue doing down the line as I graduate. And I think just being exposed to all of you guys, and being able to listen to the way that you guys can speak with such confidence, with such ease, and then learning some of the administrative lingo and other things that most students don't know about, that runs kind of behind the scenes in a school. I think that this has been a super valuable experience, and I hope that you guys can see the value of having a student representative to this committee, and how that can help certain students grow as advocators and change makers. So thank you for having me here and teaching me so much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to the board for questions first. Go ahead.
Going back to the start of your update. Thank you for sharing that information about the building. Not great to hear it. Do you guys have a method that's been communicated to you as students to report this kind of stuff to staff so that it can get addressed?
So there's not a formal method that I have heard of aside from just word of mouth, but that was actually one of the topics we discussed in the student advisory council, was maybe having sort of an anonymous recording system specifically for bathrooms, so this could relate to just like if things have kind of gotten run down in bathrooms, or if we're in the bathroom while other students are vaping or trashing it, and just basically reporting it so that administration can come to the area and just deal with issues.
Absolutely. I think that that's a great idea, and I think that that's probably easily implemented as well.
Yeah.
That's it for now.
Excellent. Any other questions? Haley, go ahead.
So similar to what Matt just asked about, what you were speaking about, the really course pathway. So I think that's a really interesting idea. As students, the first thing I know is, I bet your guidance counselors would love to hear about this, right? Because as they're trying to help you plan out your course so do you feel like as students that is feedback you're able to give like the guidance counselors, or even thinking of maybe the associate principal to help you with that? Because I think that's a really great idea, and we love to hear about it, and I know we do have administrators present here, but I think the actual staff in the high school should hear about that, because that is a really good idea.
I do think so. After we went on the learning excursion to San Diego, that was one of our takeaways from that trip, and so this has been the topic of various discussions. So both in the student advisory, it was one of the bigger focuses of the School Improvement Council as well. So there are people who are aware of this, and we're just trying to bring this discussion out more. And I guess I would just like to see more members of the student body hearing about this and just getting on board.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yep. Again, thank you for all the information tonight. I think my takeaway is the fact that you as a student, even as an outgoing student, are taking pride into the future of this building, right? We know this building's old, but you and your other students and your friends are looking at this building and how to improve it and how to make it better and how to keep it clean. So you're not just walking away from the problems. You want to report the problems and you want things fixed. So I think that just shows from your leadership side of why you were here, why you were chosen to be here. So again, I commend you on that. And I think that role, and if you can kind of foster the younger classmates on how to take pride in their building, and we want it to be able to support that. So I think that looking ahead and showing us on this committee what the issues are and how, and again, as Matt said, how to report them, and we'll come up with a method there. I think, again, it just takes a lot of pride into this facility itself. So thank you. The other aspect is obviously that this is your last meeting, unfortunately, but we know that you're on to great things. So I'm going to open up to the board for just quick comments. Go ahead, Michael.
Haley, thank you for coming to our board, being part of the board. I remember talking to Laura when she first sort of floated the idea, and we were reading through the state statute and how it works and going back and forth. And to me, it was important that this position is an actual board member, because the state statute actually says that you are actually a non-voting member of the board. So please make sure you put that on your resume, by the way, because You're an actual school committee member, it's not voting. But the feedback you provide, we are the custodians of the budget, as we've told you, so it's important to me that we got feedback from students. So thank you for starting this, and thank you for mentoring the new students coming in.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You gotta go last.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
I'm
gonna open it up to other
pointing.
board members, and I'm gonna ignore Megan for a second. So if other board members have anything they'd like to say, Haley, please. John, go ahead.
No, I'll just thank you, Haley, for your years here now at this point. You've provided a lot of feedback and insight, and very candidly and openly, and I think we've all benefited from it. So, thank you.
Robin?
Yeah, so thank you for being part of the board. I've only known you in this capacity for a year, but I remember when you were in 7th grade. And, you've actually blossomed so much. I remember the first time I saw you in a meeting thinking, wow, that's the same girl who was doing middle school track and was really quiet. So, no, and you're just very talented in so many ways, and your music too, when we've seen you play before as well. So, you're going to do great things, and this is just one small piece of what you're doing. So, you should be very proud of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brendan?
Yeah, I've known you for 10 minutes, but you're incredibly impressive. Stay involved. I hope if you stay in Milford, you run for school committee and actually get elected, because you will. Wherever you wind up, stay involved. That's the big key. So congratulations, best of luck. It seems like we're absolutely going to miss you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and from my side, congratulations, best of luck. You've set this bar very high as our first representative, but I know that the two others have learned from you, and we expect them to be able to just follow in your footsteps. So, thank you, Megan.
I can speak now. Thank you.
Yes.
So Haley, at your
Out of-
first
out of
just
very
teasing
much
you. At your first meeting, you came to us with the results of a student survey, which we were just so impressed that the first time you walked in and sat at this table, you came prepared. And so I thought it would only be appropriate that in honor of your last meeting that we share some survey results with you. So I surveyed the committee and administration today, and nearly all respondents described you as articulate, poised, and intelligent. 70% of the responses characterized you as confident and thoughtful. One respondent noted you are also well-dressed. While we have a very small
Consigli, by the way.
While we have a very small population, I am certain that these results are statistically significant. From your first meeting, you've consistently shown up prepared and been engaged through many hours of agenda items. I appreciate how seriously you've taken this commitment to this role and really value the perspective and thoughtfulness that you've brought at every opportunity. You've done your homework, and we really value that, and you've really worked to provide a comprehensive voice from the MHS student body, which has been so important and was missing before you arrived. I appreciate that you shared what you learned from this experience, and I am certain that everyone who's had the honor of sitting here with you has learned from you, and so thank you for bringing that to us. I am also certain that these accomplishments are just the beginning for you, and so I can't wait to see what's up for you at Duke and beyond, and can't wait to be invited there for a visit so we can see you in action. So thank you for being here. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Megan. And best wishes. All right, moving on to approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes, and those are the minutes for the regular session held on April 6, 2023. Any discussion there? Not seeing any, so looking for a motion to accept the minutes from April 6, 2023. Motion by Megan, second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
And that is unanimous. Great. Moving on to announcements, correspondence, distributions.
Chris,
Committee members.
don't we have exact minutes to approve but not release?
Um,
Am I missing it?
I apologize if I missed it. No.
Yeah, April
They're
6th.
in the packet.
Sorry.
They were in the pack, but no. Okay, I only read the cover sheet. My apologies. So, let me get down to that. I missed that.
So these would be for approval, but not for release.
Yeah, my apologies. And that was on what page, John? It will help.
It's right below
It was in the
I'm on page 10,
10. Okay.
but I think I'm in the middle of that. Oh, no, that's the start of page 10.
They're kind of hidden.
On the PDF.
Yes, page 10.
On the PDF. How come mine is different? My apologies. Okay. Can Can you grab me that date, John?
April
Yeah,
6th?
April 6th.
Oh,
same day.
it's the same,
day,
it's the
just
April 6th, it's just the executive session. My
Exactly.
apologies. All right, so, so approval for minutes for the April 6th executive session, from 2023. So any discussion there?
I'll motion to
And
approve.
so motion for approve from John, second by Megan, all in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. All right. And then, moving on again, sorry, to announcements, correspondence, and distributions. Committee members, Matt?
Yeah, so I wanted to give a quick announcement about school meals for next year. I know we've had a couple of discussions with the last couple of meetings about how we as a town may be able to ensure breakfast and lunch for students. Last night, the House voted as a complete body to pass their budget, which did include funding for not just school meals for next year, but permanently. And I think this is a massive step in the right direction because we all know that the governor has also stated that she's going to be supporting something like that in a supplemental budget. So that's 2 of the 3 already. In previous years, we only had 1 at this point, so they've kind of boxed in the Senate to either fall in line or look like the bad guys, which is a good thing. And things also shifted federally in terms of the CEP program that I've shared with you guys. I spoke with Carla Tuttle probably about a week ago, and the federal data has shifted, so it's because the threshold has gone down, which has pushed us further into the program, and it's given us more money federally and from the state. So I do know that as of right now, Food Services is moving forward with the application for the CEP program, which again, just to remind everybody, would remove any need for any family to fill out paperwork to qualify for free or reduced lunch. So that piece, as long as we go through this program, would go away. And that program would carry along, and it does seem like it's all but a formality at this point that the state and federal government are going to take care of lunch entirely for us. So I don't anticipate us having to bring that back up again as an agenda item, but if governmental things happen, we'll have to discuss that in the fall, but I think we're in good shape at this point.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Any other? Robin?
I just wanted to say briefly, I had the opportunity on April 13th to attend the school day games, and it was a bit warm, but other than that, it was a really great day. And for anyone who's not familiar with it, students from all of the elementary schools, including Shining Star and Stacy, students with disabilities are partnered with buddies without disabilities and play collaboratively in a unified fashion a variety of games, with students from the high school with and without disabilities actually being the ones to run the games. And so it was really great, lots of smiles, though lots of drinking water too. It was one of those like 85 days we had, but it was a really nice time, and you know, Jen Walsh and everybody else involved did really wonderful things, and they do it every year, and I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Robin. Appreciate that. Anything else?
Which does remind me, the Best Buddies pageant is tomorrow night at Milford High School. I believe it's 5 o'clock start.
Might be 6.
Okay, 6 o'clock start.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else? Dr. McIntyre, you're good?
I am
on
good for
tonight?
today, yes.
All right. Excellent. All right. Very good. Moving on to invitation to speak. Do we have anybody here with invitation to speak? All right. Thank you. Please come up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Consigli. So I guess, yeah, quickly, Milford School Committee welcomes community members to speak at this portion of our meeting. Speakers are allowed 5 minutes to present to this board. Committee members will listen but not respond to the direct questions, but can suggest a topic to be added to the future meetings. All right?
Okay.
So,
Let me
Thank
time
you. Mike has it.
Mike's got it, perfect.
Mike's my timer, so.
Do I have to introduce
Even better.
myself or anything?
Please, if
or-
you could, that'd be great.
My name's Darcy. My son goes to school in Milford, so.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's nice to see everybody's faces this time round being here. So we currently have a culture that's hell-bent on influencing our children through woke ideologies and curriculums over teaching the truth. My son is in 6th grade, and the fact that on his first day of health class, I had to learn that he had to fill out a survey with a question on it asking what his pronouns are is absolutely unnecessary, and my son will not partake in any of this silly indoctrination, and neither should anyone else. This question, if being asked, should not be a mandatory question in the schools on any forms. If you are going to have a question like this on a survey for the students, leave it optional. It should not be forced on them to choose an answer. Schools across the country want to start pushing all this information on children as young as kindergarten so that these kids are being conditioned as the years go on, and they just go on with life thinking this is all normal when it's not normal. This is not normal at all. I want my son being taught facts, not personal beliefs. Why does everyone have to cater to this? It is absurd. We literally have adults, husbands and wives that are married and have kids that feel the need to have pronouns and introduce themselves in school as such and in emails and meetings this way. Why? Speaking with our children about pronouns or that you believe there are multiple genders in school is insanity. Having to sit through a gender identity movie in school is another sign of conditioning and maybe getting them to a point to start thinking about this. I wonder what it's like to be a boy or a girl, a cat, a fairy, or a potato. Maybe I should try to identify as these. It is an attention grabber right now. Identifying as something else is a trend. Kids always fall for trends. They should not be subject to this in class. I guarantee that most parents have no idea what is being talked about and shown in class on this, and I'm sure if they knew this, you would have a lot more pushback on it. This is too much and wrong information for young children. There are other things they should be focusing on rather than getting confused by their identity at such a young age. The force of this topic is out of control. There is now an obsessive need to and push for validation, which shows you are not secure in who you are. I deeply sympathize with the young children out there that are confused. I really do, because something more is clearly going on, and we should maybe be asking ourselves what is bringing these kids to really think such things about themselves. We shouldn't have to add on names because someone decided they wanted to be something they weren't born to be. Pushing this on innocent young children is confusing. Live your life and be happy with who you are, and stop trying so hard to look for validation. Acceptance of ourselves should not be contingent on other people agreeing with how you feel. Tolerance goes both ways. Respect people with beliefs that do not align with yours. Children are already inclusive, tolerant, and accepting by nature until they are given reason not to be. There is no need to push any ideology down their throats to teach them how to be so. Gender ideology is also a Trojan horse to pedophilia. There is no pride in sexualizing and indoctrinating children. I would like to make one thing very clear. I don't have any hate or anything for trans or gay people. I simply hate the control culture behind it. It is really quite simple. Be with who you want, dress how you want, do what you want, but don't ever demand to change anyone else's language because of their choices. No one ever cared about this until it was being shoved in everyone's faces, especially our children. Don't ask yourself how we got here if you contribute to an ideology that is lacking of any morals and is obsessed with labels. I want you to really think about this. Children under the age of 18 are not even allowed to make major decisions yet. They cannot purchase alcohol, a firearm. They cannot go on a field trip or get a tattoo or piercing without consent. They cannot drive until 16. They aren't even allowed in a rated R movie if they are under 17 without a parent accompanying them. But we live in a society where we are now allowing children to choose their own gender and identity. What makes you think that indoctrinating and confusing these young children is a good idea? Why would any parent even let a young child think that they are something different than what they were born as? I considered myself a tomboy growing up. Never did I ever think, maybe I should try being a boy because I like doing boy things and dressing tomboyish. Never did my parents push that I should maybe explore my gender or sexuality. Little boys sometimes like to play with their sisters' Barbies or dolls. So does that make them a girl trapped in a boy's body or gay? No, it does not. Let kids be kids. Kids go through phases. Our brains are not fully developed until we are in our mid to late 20s. Yet again, we are leaving such decisions to children to be making, and adults are just going along with this. They are not capable of making lifelong decisions. At one time, this used to be common knowledge. All children should know they can do anything regardless of their race, religion, or gender, and to respect others. I want to close with these questions for you to think about. What do you think this is doing to our next generation? Has anyone thought about the consequences of allowing children to be doing these things? Where does this all end? Thank you.
Chris, if I can just say something, and it's not responding to this specifically, but I thank you for coming up here and presenting your thoughts and ideas. And what I would encourage you and anybody else with an agenda to present your ideas is to reach out to us individually. We're elected officials here to represent you. And if you call us or email us directly, we can engage in some conversation. And here, this is not the forum for that. It's not an agenda item. It's not an agenda item. It's prohibited by the open meeting law, so we can't engage with you right now. But I welcome you to reach out to me or anybody else here, and not just you, everybody who comes here with these ideas, because it's not as effective. Well, it has some effect, but there can be a different effect if you reach out individually to us, because we are here as elected officials.
Okay.
Thank you, John, for that advice.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, moving on from invitation to speak.
Do we have somebody else from it? Are you together?
No, I'll reach out to you guys individually.
You sure you, okay.
Yeah, I've reached out to the schools a few times in the last
Okay.
couple of years.
No problem. Moving on from invitation to speak to the vote on the last day of school for 2022-2023. So Dr. McIntyre.
Sure. Basically, this is just a change in the date of the last day of school due to snow days, and I believe, and correct me on this, it's the 21st is now the new last day of school. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I had too.
So we'd be voting on the
Check on that.
21st being the last day of school.
Verify.
And the reason we have the Juneteenth holiday on Monday, we've had 2 snow days, it shifts to Wednesday of that week, which is the 21st. Yes.
Which is a Wednesday, sorry, right?
Yep,
Double check
correct.
that. Yeah,
Correct.
so Wednesday, yeah. So the last day of school will be June 21st, 2023.
Is that a half day, Kevin?
It is a half day.
Excellent. So looking for a motion to accept for the last day of school being June 21st, 2023. Motion by Michael, second by Matt. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Excellent.
And I'll send that out just for the families tomorrow.
All right, moving on.
And hopefully we have no other weather issues between now and the end of the school year.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna knock on wood on that one.
All right.
Yeah, really.
Moving on, next agenda item is for FY 2024, the annual Bi-County Collaborative Board of Directors appointment of our superintendent. So, looking for a motion to appoint Dr. Kevin McIntyre to the Bi-County Collaborative on their Board of Directors. Motion by Brendan, second by Megan, all in favor, and that is unanimous.
And for Brendan, our new member, this is just an annual appointment. It's something I've been involved in for the last 7 years.
There's that signed
Fantastic.
appointment. There we go.
Thank you, Kevin.
Excellent. All right, moving on to subcommittee assignments. I left everybody's subcommittee, the new subcommittee assignments on everybody's desk. But I will go through them, and I kind of I broke it up a little bit this year, kind of into 2 categories. One being our normal school committee business type of subcommittees, and a separate item or a separate row of subcommittees that are from the union contract. So policy subcommittee will consist of Robin, Brendan, and myself. Budget will consist of John, Megan, and Matt. Long-range planning will consist of John, Matt, and myself. Marketing and communication will be Michael and Brendan. And the Milford TV Board representative will be Michael. And then per our union contract, the health and safety, Megan will continue on that. From the sick bank, Robin, have you continue on that. Climate, culture, and morale, again, Robin, have you continue on that. And then the IT and technology, both Matt and Mike will continue on that one. So, any questions or concerns from the board on that? Does not require a vote. If there is any type of issues, please reach out to me. Yes,
Remind me what sick bank does.
Robin.
So sick bank, so when there is a staff member who is eligible and wants to be able to tap into the sick bank to get days approved because they otherwise wouldn't be able to be paid, a committee comes together which has a school committee representative and then other individuals from within the district, including union representation, who come together and talk about whether or not to approve the days.
Is it a bank of sick days from the community? Or
Each teacher puts 1 sick day into the bank each year.
That's okay. Curious.
So just tapping into that.
Would it be a conflict?
I think it would depend if it was a person who I had a personal relationship with, I would recuse myself, but.
My opinion, it's just opinion, it would be no, it's not.
Yeah, just curious.
Because I've considered it because, you know, in past roles.
Good. Excellent. Then. All right. Good. Moving on from subcommittee assignments to a discussion on the Director of Facilities and Maintenance position. We don't need to vote.
You don't need to vote,
Nope.
okay.
It
All
does say vote, but it's an assignment.
All right,
So,
perfect.
yep.
Perfect.
No problem. Moving on, Director of Facilities and Maintenance position update and the interview committee discussion.
Sure. Do you want me to walk you through? And
Yes,
then
please,
I'll
yep.
Open it up for discussion?
Yep.
So, we posted the position for the Director of Facilities. It's gonna close on May 1st. We plan to do the pre-screening on May 2nd. We've received somewhere in, I think about 25 applications so far, give or take, which is good news.
I'm sorry, how many?
About 25,
Okay.
thereabouts.
I just didn't hear it all, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. The interview dates we're targeting right now is May 8th and 9th. And the potential interview team, Kathy, are you back on the 8th and 9th? All right, so I'm going to leave you off the list. This is what I'd like to propose is Dr. Consigli, 2 school committee members, 2 building administrators, 1 representative from the custodians group, the Milford Fire Chief or a designee, representatives from Parks and or the Highway Department, 2 parents or community members. And again, if the committee feels that they want to add somebody or, adjust this a little bit, I plan on reaching out starting tomorrow to kind of pull the committee together, with the goal being sending 2 to 4 finalists to me, basically. Ideally 3, but 2 to 4 works. I always worry if we have 2, if one drops out, then we really only have 1 candidate. So at this point, and we'd have predetermined questions in the process we generally follow. And then I'll open it up for discussion and any questions.
Any questions?
I just have one
Yeah, Brendan,
question.
go
With the job posting, did the salary range also get posted with it?
Kath, do you know the answer to that?
I do not believe so. Looking at
No,
the posting
it
right
was commensurate with experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I was just curious, just because like 25 seems like a pretty good number, so I was wondering if that was in light of the salary range or if it didn't exist, and I wonder if that would actually exclude some people if they did not feel like it was.
Chris and I, as chair and vice chair, met with Kathy and excuse me, Kevin, and there's a lot of thoughts that go with this, but it's commensurate with experience because
Mhm.
you might have somebody that's relatively new to the field and can grow into the job, and that wouldn't warrant as much as somebody
Sure.
that comes in with a 20-year experience and can
Sure.
hit more off the bat. And obviously Kathy's taken over a lot of responsibilities and could bring somebody up into
Mhm.
somebody newer. So that's the discussion I remember, Chris.
Correct, yep.
If I can with the question on the makeup of the committee, and this is maybe an awkward question coming from me serving as school committee and the building commissioner, but I don't know if it was intended that I might be one of the 2 school committee members, but given the fire chief, somebody from Parks and Highway, parents and committee members, if I wasn't the building commissioner, I would think you'd want the building commissioner sitting in on that interview.
Add building commissioner, so I'll take your thunder from
Yeah,
you.
no,
So I was
well,
gonna suggest
I'm
it
sorry.
too, but John,
I just
no, I
rolled
understand
into it.
It puts you in an awkward position,
It
so.
is,
Yeah.
it's not that it's an ask, it's,
Yeah.
I mean.
No, I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're asking, it's okay.
Yeah.
Building commissioner plus,
well,
it makes sense.
I mean, I don't know like Parks Highway would be a town official that's
Yeah.
more relevant, or if that, I don't know, I think that makes sense, I know, trip it over.
Yeah, no, I
You're
think
good.
that's
Well, I
I think
kinda
that's
interrupted you,
reasonable.
and, yeah, and I think that it's reasonable to put the building commissioner
Yeah.
on. Obviously, John serves in 2 roles, being on this committee, but also, the day job as building commissioner, and just his knowledge, the knowledge from the building commissioner side and how it would tie into this facilities director, I think would be beneficial.
And that would still
I
keep us
suggest
below the level of quorum too, which is good.
Correct, yes.
In this position is, and maybe that was some, reason for your proposal, but this position as facilities works on a regular basis with both the fire chief and the building
Correct.
commissioner, so.
And the highway department
And
of Parks
so
as
if you're
well.
soliciting town advice, it makes sense to include that position. I don't mean me individually, I just happen to be there right now.
You had me at the recommendation. You don't have to sell it anymore. You're-
Needed to anyway.
It's done.
I need to, you know me, I need
I know, I know you-
explain
I
my
know,
thoughts
I know.
sometimes.
Quick question.
Yes, please.
Are you gonna do like an A/B format?
I think we're gonna just do maybe 1 group this time.
It's a big group. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
We might, yeah. I'll consider it though. I'll look at it.
I have
No, it's a good question.
Megan?
Thanks. Kevin, who will the position report to?
So I think we're gonna keep it the way it was previously, where it would be the assistant superintendent for business and human resources.
So I might have misheard you before. I believe you said you had interview days where Kathy's not around. I didn't hear you correctly then.
You did.
Okay, so
You
I'm
did.
confused by that.
I anticipate her and I interviewing the finalists, engaging with the finalists.
Sorry. So you're saying the pre-round. Are you comfortable with that?
I am comfortable with that.
Okay.
And we've talked about that too.
Okay, just
And what
curious.
we
It
usually
just
do
seemed
is
like
like,
an.
when we're bringing folks through, we'll have a meet with like principals and myself, and
Got it.
that's what we've done with principals and central office folks in the past.
Okay.
But
That's
Kathy would be a big part of that.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan, for bringing that up. Any other questions there? Yes, also, are we looking for, as far as reaching out to the, parents or community members, is that just, how are we?
I would put that
gonna
in
go
just
about
an email.
that? Okay, in that email,
And we post it on
obviously-
social media as well.
Yeah, so that email can go out to the parents of the school. If we're looking community member wise, is there any other?
We'd probably put it on our Facebook page, put it
Okay.
out on Twitter, and probably talk to some groups that distribute stuff for us generally.
Okay. Michael, you have a suggestion?
No, just a question. I'm not against this, but why would we have two community members? Like, I understand like administrators, they work with the community. This position almost never works with the community. Just out of curiosity.
We get a lot of community feedback around facilities. I think we saw some of that earlier today.
Yeah.
Earlier
Yeah,
tonight?
fair enough.
Yeah.
What's Haley doing?
Can I ask-
I was gonna say,
Kevin,
you should
did
be a student representative.
Did you say teachers would be represented?
I don't have a teacher on here. I
No
can add a
teachers.
teacher.
Well, I just feel as though they have such a
Yep.
buy-in with this position that.
We're getting to 2 committees, I think,
Yeah.
in which we can do very easily.
Are we looking to do this in person also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What we have done to accommodate folks if they're out of the area or applying from out of the area, initially we do accommodate for Zoom
Okay.
or Google Meets, and we've done
Sure.
that just traditionally.
Okay.
But we expect people to be in person for the most part.
Okay. And those
And we were doing that
interviews,
pre-COVID too.
Yeah. Those interviews on the 8th and 9th are looking like after,
Probably
in the evening,
probably
early
like 5 to 8-ish.
yeah, okay.
Depending on, the numbers, 5 to 9-ish, something like that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and if any committee oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Kevin, just curious. So look, it was barely posted for 2 weeks. Is that consistent with do we feel like that's sufficient time? I appreciate that we have a fair amount of applicants. It just feels like that's.
What we've done in the
Not
past
long.
is if we don't get a good applicant pool,
You
we'll
open
extend
it
the
longer.
date or
Okay.
we'll open it for a second
Okay.
time. But I think we've got a reasonable applicant pool right now.
Okay.
And actually, I'm very
We went
pleased.
out to Indeed this,
Oh.
with this position, and that was really.
A lot of volume, I bet, Kathy.
It really, are you
'Cause-
including Indeed?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we got some great
Okay.
applicants in there.
Yeah,
Volume
'cause-
doesn't necessarily mean quality, so I just wanted to
Correct.
make sure we felt
yeah,
like
and
that
if
was.
we don't have the quality when we do
Go
the
back.
pre-screen,
Okay.
we'll go back out too.
Okay.
And we can do that at any point.
The process is quite comprehensive, so I didn't necessarily want to rush it if we didn't feel like the pool
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah, so if the pool isn't there, then we'd repost.
No, I'd agree. I don't think we want to rush this one at all. This is
2
a-
weeks just feel, yeah.
It's a pretty critical position, and something I didn't mention or emphasize earlier is this position also works very closely with our highway surveyor. So there's a lot of contact throughout the town, and it's this needs to be done well.
Thanks for participating.
Thanks for having me.
So I don't know if you want to identify 2 school committee members who are able tonight.
What I'll have them do is just they can reach out to via email to me and CC Dr. McIntyre or vice versa, just so we know and
I'd
if
agree. You
there
don't want
is.
to rush into something right
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
Everybody's interested. Just
Especially go
have
back,
that-
look at your schedules, figure out if you're be able to make those dates, and let us know over the next couple of days. Would be great. So, sound good?
Perfect.
Good. All right. Any other questions? All right. Moving on. So, next agenda item is to discuss legal counsel representation. I'm going to turn this right over to Michael
Yeah.
for his take on this.
So being on the board now for 3.2 years, and especially through COVID and then through this year, when I've run my own business, I had 3 lawyers, one for employment, one for riparian rights, if you know what that is, and then one for general liability. And so in here, I've noticed we all call Jerry, and I call Jerry a lot, and he always reminds me. He's happy to talk to us, but then he reminds me, I'm your labor counsel. And then over the time, we've talked to town council, and that's been hit or miss over the past four years. And then it just dawned on me, Jerry's he's trying to retire. Like Kevin said, he'll probably retire long after us. But it just seemed to make sense that we have some gaps here and there, and looking into other school districts, they usually have a firm that represents, and learned that there's a special education.
Yeah,
lawyer.
we have a group, Murphy, Toomey, Hesse, and Lehane. I think I'm saying that right. I might have changed one of the consonants. Who does basically special education, student discipline, and they'll take some cases that maybe are a little more complex or educationally focused that are like would fall into the labor category. They'll do anything around some free speech stuff we've done too, if there's been a challenge in my tenure here. So they cover some of those areas that aren't covered by either the town council because it's very specialized, or the labor council.
Yeah, so my thought was, just to start a discussion, it seems like, maybe it's this firm, maybe it's another firm. It seems like we need somebody to represent the school committee and the school district who specializes in Chapter 70 and special ed and, the broad, area. So I just wanted to throw out there, again, obviously we want to let Jerry retire at some point, but there just seems some gaps, so I just wanted to get a discussion going and say, hey, do we think we want to start looking for a firm, and again, maybe it's the one that we already retain at the school committee level.
Thank you. Anybody have questions towards Michael on this subject matter? Not seeing any thoughts?
Well,
Yeah. Please go ahead.
I have some thoughts if nobody else does. I'm not, so, yes, Jerry's definitely our labor council, and he's also filled double duty as town council. We've had, aside from Jerry, over the last 6 years, give or take, we've had 2 other individuals serving as town council. But my question is, what's our objective and what are we getting if we're looking for a firm? We have an ongoing situation right now that's in executive session that, we might benefit from hiring a specialty attorney for, but if we're gonna hire a firm, do we, what are we looking for? Because we don't know what the next problem is. We know what this problem is, and so if we hire somebody that we might deem, we need a firm that has an expert employment attorney, what's the next one, and does this firm have that? So I kind of want to qualify what we're looking for, and then, when it comes, I don't know how this works on the procurement end with, if it's like accounting where you don't need to go out to bid. I mean, this is so specialized. What are we getting? So, I'm willing to, definitely willing to talk more, but I'm not sure I don't think we've quantified what we're looking for yet, but if we want to evolve that, by all means.
Yeah, usually when you have multiple lawyers involved, there's usually one lawyer who's the general counsel who helps coordinate all the outreach of the specialized, right? And so if you bring a firm in, you might have the one lawyer who's your one person you go to, and then if there's a specialized question, they will help coordinate that legal counsel. And if it's in-house, great. If it's not, they'll go find somebody for you. And it's usually, like if we have questions on policies, stuff like that. We have a lot of general questions here, and like I said, we individually called Jerry. We asked Jerry in this room. We have town council who's doing a bazillion other things in the town, and just like if I want to call a lawyer to ask a question about schools, I don't know who to call except for Jerry. And so I think that's the gap that I'm trying to fill is, who is our lawyer that represents the school district that we can ask a lot of questions on, and they'll help us go find the answers.
I think right now the answer is we have a town council that if he doesn't have the time or doesn't have the area of expertise, he can direct us. I mean, I've worked in other towns that don't have in-house town council, so they outsource it. And what I find there is sometimes when their in-house attorneys don't really have the area of expertise, they're not really redirecting you outside where you're going to go pay somebody else. They're going to give you an answer even if it's not their area of expertise. So I want a lot more detail on what I guess first we want to define what we're looking for a little bit more specifically, and I'll consider anything, but I just want to know what the response expectations are. And on top of that, we can't have, when you have outside counsel, when we have in-house counsel, any of us in this room can call Jerry or Brian and ask them a question, but once we call an outside firm, the meter starts ticking at whatever hourly rate they are, and we need a policy or understanding of who can call. I mean, I don't think all 7 of us can just call it. The ticker's going to be running when might be all asking the same question, getting the same answer, but we're billed 7 times for it, so.
Same thing with Jerry. I'm sure he bills us what we call him.
No, he doesn't.
No?
He's got an annual rate.
Oh.
Good to know.
So, you know,
And that being said, if I could jump in, John, just to kind of further, we have rules of engagement when we engage with we have a lead attorney for Murphy, Hussey, Toomey, and Lehane, which I think a lot of you guys have met, Felicia. But there's also been a couple times where there's been a specialized situation that they bring a different attorney on. You know, maybe around Title IX is one example. And, you know, principal, central office, special education, who generally deal with the firm, have very specific rules of engagement about how they kind of address it, because we don't want.
Yeah, John, you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Megan.
I think I definitely support it, Michael. I think where you started was really relevant to me. Like, at some point, you know, Mr. Moody will decide he does really actually want to retire, and he's been helping us for so long. I think it would be prudent of us to start to think about, when that time comes, sort of what direction are we going to head, even if it's just Labor Council, kind of, you know, where would be, you know, the next right individual. So I think starting the conversation and, you know, talking to him and aligning timing probably makes a lot of sense, just so we're ahead of it.
Exactly, yeah, and I don't think Jerry has a timeline in mind, but certainly, you know, we don't know how long this process would take on our side too, you know, and this board, you know, every year at this time has definitely had some bit of turnover, so, you know, certainly we've got, you know, it's in the best interest for this board currently and in the future board, so, you know, I appreciate Mike bringing this to our attention. I think, you know, it's just scratching the surface. There's more work to do. Does it require, you know, some type of exploratory committee, subcommittee to kind of hone in on the process and talk outside, you know, to be productive. So, you know, certainly we can explore those options. You can tell me, Mike, what your thoughts were on that angle, and, you know, you kind of are taking the lead on this. So I will follow your lead.
Yeah, no, I guess from my experience, you usually just interview a couple firms and then figure out, you know, who you like and whatnot. If we have somebody retained, it might just be talking to that firm and saying, hey, will they fill the need? Again, I'm looking for consistency. You know, somebody that's just that legal counsel who brings, like Jerry, that consistency throughout. You know, moving forward. I don't know. I would say maybe a few of us just reach out to a couple of firms or work with Kevin on who we have, and expand that.
well, if I can clarify, like, 2 different areas. To Megan's point, Jerry's not here forever, although he might be. But are we looking for talking about replacing Jerry, or are we looking to supplement, you know, our labor council and town council's role with that?
I would say
outside
supplement. You know, obviously Jerry has a ton of information, so having somebody come in before he retires to start to absorb what he's been doing, I think makes, you know, smart. I don't think there's a rush, but I think, like Mike said, we should start to think about it and explore it. I think having a legal firm who represent our board in town makes a lot of sense. You know, obviously the town council represents the town, and they're going to be great for, you know, municipal stuff, but still, you know, Chapter 70s, special ed, all that stuff is super complicated.
Well, the only thing I disagree with there is town council represents the town and not town versus school. We are within the town. There's a lot of things that happen within the school umbrella that the town council deals with directly, not the labor council, not the least of which, you know, arose a few weeks ago. I don't want to talk about it. It's not on the agenda, but there's a lot of things that town council deals with directly. So we can certainly proceed, but I think we need to have, you know, a very meaningful discussion about it. You know, let's drive deeper. If we want to do a subcommittee or assign 2 members or 3 members to explore what we want to accomplish and how that's best done, I'm all in favor of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know certainly both. You know, Jerry's always been the easiest guy to get in touch with, in more conveniently. But I have certainly reached out to Brian more frequently now too, and, you know, just because again he is our town council and he has been available, which is good. But again, so it's nice to have that resource, you know, that we know will answer the phone. But again, I understand where you're coming from, Mike. So yeah, I think we can continue on the exploratory side of things and you know, see where this brings us.
Okay.
So we got come up with a direction, or do you want to bring it back to another
I
meeting?
guess you wanna bring it, would your suggestion be to bring it back with some more information, or do you feel like we should start the exploratory
No, I mean,
aspects
I
now?
don't mind talking to Jerry and Brian as well, and talking to Kevin, and just kind of, we might find out that, the current town council's like, hey, I got it, no problem.
Okay.
I know our last town council was a little bit hard to get in touch, so.
Mhm.
Not our last one, our second to last
Second-
one.
Second to last
Two
one, yeah,
next.
that's right, yeah.
And
So-
not our third to last.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I'm fine. I've talked to many lawyers, so I have no problem chasing this
Yeah.
one down.
I have no problem keeping this as an open
Okay.
discussion,
Sure.
we can throw it on the agenda at any time, simply,
My
Have
intent would
discussions
be
like
to
this.
get, obviously Jerry's input and
Yep.
Brian's input as well too.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I'd be in favor of authorizing Michael and any two others, or just Michael to, do some research and bring it back to us.
Okay.
I mean, it's his role anyways, but to come to a consensus that we're
Yep.
we're in favor of that.
excellent, no, that sounds good. So, sounds like if you want, if you're looking to build a team, of two others, feel free to, if anybody would like to work with Michael on this, feel free to reach out to him, consider it, and then Michael, just let me know who the two are, or just CC me on any emails, and, we'll go from there.
sounds good.
Perfect, great. Excellent. Moving on then, for our report from our superintendent of schools.
All right, great. So I have 3 agenda items this evening. The first one is the superintendent's goals update. And I don't want to go into a detailed review of the goals documents and supporting documentation I provided, but I did want to highlight some areas both for the committee and the viewers at home. And the first thing I want to do is just review some of the top accomplishments for the 22-23 school year, because I think we've actually accomplished a great deal. And this is by no means an exhaustive list, but I think it talks about some of the things I think both the committee and the district have accomplished. The first is the implementation and rollout of the illustrative math curriculum in grades K through 5. Next is the development of the 23-24 budget, which includes resources to support a growing and shifting student population. And again, that's pending an affirmative town meeting vote, which is coming up. Successful completion of contract negotiations with the Milford Teachers Association, and that contract was ratified today. So that's good news. Successful completion of initial contract negotiations with the Milford Behavioral Assistants, and I think we're waiting for the ratification of that initial contract. We've offered a comprehensive training and professional development program for our educators across the district. We've done preparation for the installation and construction of 6 modular classrooms at Brookside Elementary School, which will be installed during the summer of 2023. Also, the preparation for the installation and replacement of the turf field and track at Milford High School, as well as lights for the softball field during the summer of 2023. So the other thing I'll be sharing with our families is the fact that a lot of those areas are going to be off limits for most of the summer. So then I'm just going to just really highlight quickly each of just 1 or 2 things from the goals, if that works, Chris.
Sure.
Yeah. So goal 1 is the textbook adoption, which I mentioned earlier, which across elementary schools, which is a daunting task. And I want to commend Carrie Taylor, Craig Consigli, our building administrators at our elementary schools, our instructional coaches, and our curriculum team leaders and teachers for their incredible and ongoing work in implementing the new illustrative math program. There's been significant planning, professional development, and ongoing support that will not conclude with the close of the 2022-2023 school year. In terms of goal 2, the second goal is to improve daily attendance and reduce chronic absenteeism across the district, and you've met our attendance supervisors. And this was a learning year for us because this is the first time we've had attendance supervisors, but we engaged in several iterations of how to best use the time of our attendance supervisors and how to best connect them to our schools. We started a monthly attendance team that included representatives from each K through 12 school, our 2 attendance supervisors, and myself. We left Shining Star off because preschool attendance is not compulsory. After 3 meetings, we kind of changed the structure and had the attendance supervisors meet with a designated administrator at each school each month and identify students that the school was concerned with, and the attendance supervisors could provide additional interventions and supports to. And we have found that throughout the year that when the attendance supervisors work with a student and a family, the attendance often improves. Dale and Victor who are our attendance supervisors, are working tirelessly with our students and families to improve attendance. My concern, which is shared by them and our building-based administrative teams, is that coming off the pandemic, we have so many students struggling with attendance. We're talking about engaging more in some systemic activities next year. And I wanted to share a document that Victor and Dale developed. They've done a lot of outreach with other districts who've had more established attendance programs and supervisors. And they're starting to share this with families, and we're going to use it more broadly next year. The document's also been translated into Spanish and Portuguese as well. And I put kind of a pile of documents on your table, but it's this document right here. And I'm not going to go over it at all, but I think it's worth taking a look at. I think it's very well done. And I think they've kind of accessed resources across the state to kind of pull this together. And it's just a lot of good information about just the importance of attendance, how it impacts grades, post-secondary success, general health. There's a lot of just clear benefits to attendance. So goal 3 is to improve the diversity of the Milford Public Schools staff through improvements to our practices for recruiting, selecting, inducting, and retaining staff. And I'm going to share 2 documents with you. The first one is the change in diverse educators in the last 7 years. And we increased our educator diversity by 283.4% during this time period, which is great, but we still have a great deal of work to do in this area. Additionally, and I think this is important to note because it's not necessarily always captured in, with the kind of the race question, is we have more than 120 staff who are multilingual across the district. And we're going to continue our efforts and outreach in both these areas to continue to diversify the teaching staff and to continue to hire multilingual educators. The second piece of data I want to share with you is the next page, which says MPS retention data compared to the state. And these are just educators who have teaching licenses. So this is teachers, counselors, psychologists. So anybody who fall into like that DESE teacher license kind of category. And for that, the good news is our retention of teachers is consistently higher than the state. But both our data and the state retention data is declining for reasons we've discussed here previously. There's a lot of kind of trends happening both nationally and internationally and kind of coming out of the pandemic that are impacting the data. But we've been consistently above the state, which is actually fantastic. I'm hopeful that this trend will change and we'll start to see both the Milford retention data increase and the state retention data will increase, and we'll see more students entering college interested in entering the teacher workforce. And that's one of our biggest kind of systemic concerns is we have just a declining number of undergraduates and graduate students in colleges and university teacher education programs. And it's down about 25% over the last 7 or 8 years, it's concerning. Goal 4 is complete a review of facilities across the Milford schools, which will include focused work with the Milford School Committee, Facilities Subcommittee, either resubmit a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority or move forward with the next step of the process. Unfortunately, we're resubmitting this year. And oversee the installation of the Brookside Elementary School addition. Here we've made significant progress as we are moving forward with, as I stated earlier, the modular classroom project at Brookside this summer, the turf field and lighting project at Milford High School. Our capital plan has been approved and supported by the Finance Committee, and we submitted the statement of interest in April to the MSBA for the Milford High School complex project. I'm hopeful that because we moved forward in the project last year, we might take maybe the next step this year. It's also possible that as construction costs continue to escalate, I think MSBA is funding fewer projects each year, so it'll be interesting to see kind of where we stand. Clearly, they're interested in what we're proposing. It'll be interesting if our needs compared to other proposals across the state are either one of the higher needs or we don't necessarily make the cut. We're going to find that out. Where we will need to do more work in the remainder of this year and next year is to develop a new facilities plan and contingency plan if we are not funded by the MSBA in a timely fashion. I look forward to, I think we're calling it the Long Range Planning Committee, working with that group to move this work ahead and create a more comprehensive plan for the next 5 to 7 years. In terms of focus indicators, for standard 1E, data-informed decision-making, if you look at the document, there are numerous examples across the district of how we're using data to inform budget requests, instruction, and programming. I think this has become part of the culture of the Milford Public Schools. I think we use data, all the time and pretty effectively. And I think you can see examples from, I think, pre-K through 12 in there and across departments. Standard 2B implements a cohesive approach to hiring, induction, development, and career growth that promotes high quality and effective practice. Again, we're aggressively engaged in hiring fairs and promotions, supporting our new educators through a well-developed mentoring and induction program, and engage in trainings that support hiring diverse candidates that our administrators have jumped into. We are very focused on creating, and this is the important part this year, we're really focused on efficiency, because I think if we don't move fast, particularly with teachers, I think the facilities director process is a little different, but with teachers, where we're just competing with districts for fewer and fewer candidates. And that's something that I think is going to become more pervasive in the coming years. For communication, I want to highlight the quarterly publication. I think it was at Chris's request, and it's been very well received, of the Milford Public School News. And I think Nancy and her team have done a very nice job, and we've got great contributions from folks across the district. And finally, for professional culture and continuous learning, I think this is a real strength of the district. And I asked Craig actually to pull together a document, which I shared with you, and you might not be able to access all of it, but I shared a lot of the sub-pages too, we have professional learning programs and activities happening across the district in all levels that I think is almost unmatched across the state. It's new program for new teachers, technology training, social emotional learning, the work of our instructional coaches, special education, EL, and our staff serves on boards and committees within the district and across the state. And we regularly have folks who are, chairing pretty major initiatives that go beyond the borders of the Milford Public Schools. So that's the update on the goals. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for presenting. Appreciate that. Any questions? Matt?
Just a real quick one on the overall total educators. What's that number at compared to university? About 200, 220, something like that?
For the
Total
people who are in
number
the
of educators in the district.
It's almost 500 now.
Yeah,
Is
I think
it?
after this hiring,
Yes.
yeah, it'll be
exactly.
500.
All right.
And what's our total employees? Is it about?
Full-time employees were probably right under 1,000. You're talking TAs,
Yeah,
BAs,
yeah.
custodian.
Thank you. Other questions? Megan?
Not necessarily a question, more comments, Kevin. So I love the sort of examples of where the attendance officers are really having an impact. So appreciate that being pulled together. It's helpful to kind of see that in action. I think it was also shared that they plan to create a video with Mr. Fulster. I think that's a
Yep.
fantastic idea,
Yep.
right? So super proactive. I do think that the data piece is going to be critical there in supporting those over the long term. So I would really encourage them to figure out how we're going to be able to have that metric available so we can look about progress. I mean, I think eventually it'll be reflected on our accountability scorecard, but in the short term, just really understanding where we're seeing that impact, I think will be really important. So just more reinforcing that, and I know it's in the works, but just wanted to.
Yeah, 100%. We really want a year of data before we can
Mhm.
really start looking at it. And actually, you really want a few years of data before it really, has an impact or makes a difference. But, our friend Principal Outland at the high school has put together a couple of things that I'll probably share as part of this at the end of the year too.
That's great. And the systems, I would assume, support us in terms of being able to extract this, or we will.
Yes, this is so we have data systems that we can very easily pull attendance data, and you can pull it from points in time. So,
Got it.
So
We can see that. Okay.
It's reasonable to work with.
Great. Okay. And the other thing I just want to maybe reiterate, which I'm sure is also on your list, is in regards to standard 1 around instructional leadership, the data-informed decision-making talks specifically about linking school improvement plans with district goals. And I just
Mhm.
feel like now's the time of year that those are being created. And so just to reiterate
Yep.
that we would expect to see that linkage when they come back to us, I think we continue to improve upon that.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I think that's been a process that's
Mhm.
actually been improving year over year.
Excellent. Are we envisioning more in terms of implementation of Portrait of a Graduate as well as part of that?
I'm hopeful of that.
Okay.
I'm hopeful of that. I think this has been a nice return to normal year in a lot of
Fair.
ways.
Mhm.
And I think we're gonna, it's something that I think is on the mind of the principals and the directors, and I think they're like, as they're developing plans or programs or projects, they're trying to,
Okay.
keep those connections alive.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Chris.
Other questions?
I just had a clarifying question. Did you mention that the track and the turf was being redone this
Yes.
Yes.
season? Okay. That just came as a little bit of a surprise to me. Is there a specific reasoning behind that?
Just the age.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually beyond the age you typically would replace it, but it's been kept in such good condition that we've been able to go a few. Was it like 3 years beyond what we typically go, or is it 4 years?
Just under 3 years.
Just under 3 years beyond what the expected life was.
And then is that like a summer-long process? Or
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much when school closes till I think the fall sports start to kick off is the goal, as long as everything goes according to plan.
It won't affect graduation.
That's good.
But I think but I think on the 22nd, everything kind of kicks into high gear, and we've already done some site work even for the modular classrooms at this point.
So, yeah, and just from a process standpoint, what we did is, from our capital plan, we went to town meeting back in the fall. When we requested specific funds to use for that specific project, and it was approved unanimously, or overwhelmingly, I should say.
Mhm.
So it's kind of part of the underlying process where
Yeah.
we supported it here, we bring it to the town, and then the town gets to
Yeah.
decide whether or not we can go forward with that project.
So
which
this
they
is
did.
going forward then.
It is going
Yeah.
forward, yes.
I think this would be worthwhile to share with the student body. I think that
Okay,
impacts
Whole town.
whole town.
Yeah.
Too. Yes, yeah, whole town.
great, thank you for that.
Just get that out there.
And just to add a bright spot to that, when we do that, we're actually going to add lights at the softball field,
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
just to highlight.
Was the pun intended, Meg?
I tried. No, not at all. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions in regards to the goals side of it? Right. So, okay.
All right, so for the K2 class size and staffing, I just gave you a copy of the document I shared with you earlier this week. Last night, as you know, the Finance Committee supported our proposal for an additional kindergarten teacher if it's needed based on enrollment. And this data kind of drives home the point and the need for that. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
We'll give everybody a moment to look over the data. If they have any questions, feel free to.
And just to clarify,
Speak up,
the
'cause
top
I'm
is current,
looking
is
down.
based on current enrollment as of today of the current K and 1 classes, which are moved to 1 and 2, and based on the K projected data that we currently have of 310.
Kevin, can you refresh my memory? Were we adding a K teacher prior to last night's ask at all? Or is my class sizes just divided by the 10 and the 8 there?
Class sizes are basically divided by the 10 and the
Okay,
8 there.
thanks.
And it's always a little bit in flux, because
Mhm.
I think these were taken from different points in time too.
Okay.
So they're always moving targets.
And is this, so this enrollment's through March 31st?
The kindergarten history is through March 31st. The projected grade sizes was, I think, April 1st for 1 and 2, and March 31st for K. And the kindergarten history is based on March 31st.
Okay. And so Chris, is your thought maybe monthly we would continue to get updates on that enrollment number? At some point you have to make a decision in terms of
Right.
you'd want to have the individual in place if we're going to make that move. So
Correct.
just
Yes. Yeah, that was discussed
Sorry, I missed
also.
Tuesday.
No,
Yep.
you missed Tuesday. So, that particular, where is that
Mm-hmm.
go, no-go number in a
Mhm.
sense for enrollment, and where is the, that date in the process, right?
Mhm.
Because obviously we don't want to be 2 weeks before school.
Yeah, you want me to
cover that one?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. I think when we start to get into the mid 360s, around 365, or if we're heading in that direction,
Yep.
that's when we're going to start to, look to post the position.
Okay.
I have Principal Vicki Houston looking at 2 different layouts. One with 10 kindergartens, one with
Mhm.
11 kindergartens, and she's
Got it.
going to be planning for, you know, both contingencies.
Okay. Historically, Kevin, we would not typically see people that enroll not come to school as kindergartners.
The
or-
numbers tend to go up. They
Right,
don't tend,
okay.
we do lose people,
Mhm.
but it tends to be like the net average gain is between 60 and 120, and I think the average of that is about 80, which makes sense because it's the number in the middle of
Absolutely.
60 and 120.
Got it. Okay. That's helpful. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. The good news is we do have that flexibility that if we get like a big fall surge,
Mhm.
we'll be able to, you know, add
Sure.
a classroom.
So, any other questions on the K2 enrollment numbers? I'm not seeing any, so, all right, moving on.
All right. So school safety review, and this is timely. What I'd like to do is two things. First, I want to just share a broad overview of systems, resources, and programs that we have in place. And I do want to emphasize that I can't share everything that we do, and I can't share specific plans in a lot of cases because we don't publicize that. But I'll try to answer any questions you have with as much specificity as I can. And second, I'd like to speak just to the events at Stacy on Wednesday and just give you just an overview and be able to answer questions too. All right, so on the first one, and I'll stop at the end of the first one and then go to the second one if that makes sense.
That'd be great.
All right, perfect. All right. So for the overall district, we have 2 school resources on site in the district at all times. The Milford Police Special Operations Team is always in proximity to our schools and will provide excellent response times if any issue arises. And we've seen 2 very recent examples of that. One has been the issue at Stacy, and 2 was the swatting issue at the high school. We had immediate response. Actually, I'd say a third. We had an alarm go off in the auditorium of the high school, and we had a very quick response time there. So the response time is immediate and very effective. Each building in the district has controlled entry. We have security cameras and other technology measures in place at each of our schools. Schools regularly practice safety drills throughout the year, including bus evacuations. Now, we had a lockdown drill planned for Stacy next week. We're probably going to shift that to the fall. We work collaboratively with both the Milford Police and Fire Department to plan for all types of emergency situations. I'm regularly in contact with our fire chief, our deputy fire chief, our chief of police, and our deputies there on a variety of issues that come up. Milford Police use our schools during the summer and vacations for training exercises. All schools have protocols in place for visitors and clear guidelines for visits. Whether it's parents, guardians, contractors, or any other folks that would visit a school for any reason. We support flexible responses with safety at the core instead of one plan that is published publicly and accessible to anyone. I think back in the old days, you'd have, hey, this is our evacuation plan if this happens, and we really have like an A, B, and a C, and sometimes we have to go to D if A, B, and C aren't available. We also work very closely with the district attorney's office on a number of safety programs, as well as with our SEL team, our counselors, and our psychologists who are critical. Whenever we have an incident in the district, whether it's a death of a community member, something like that happened at Stacy with the issue that we had on Wednesday, or any major issue, we have counselors available to go, and they're a critical part of the response. So I'll open it up for questions on that piece, if you're good.
Yes, certainly, of course. Questions from the safety aspect?
Yeah, I have more of a comment. I mean, when you realizing this is a public meeting, you say you can't share your safety protocols. I get it; they shouldn't be shared at a public meeting. But if us as a school committee aren't a part of your safety protocols, and that can't be shared with us, I strongly disagree. I'd like advice from town council, and I think maybe it's appropriate for an executive session. But if we're not aware of the safety protocols, and the 1,000 employees that we mentioned 15 or 5 minutes ago are, I have a lot of trouble accepting that. But
I think it's more the case that I just want to share some things publicly, John.
Publicly, I get. But,
Yeah. I'm happy to share with any committee member that wants to sit down with me, or if we want to do small groups or anything like that.
It's just not a strong message that the school committee is not aware of the safety protocols.
Yeah, I think noted, and it's, certainly something, let's see if we can take it up in executive session. you know, or we.
Or individually, but I mean.
Yeah, or individually, yeah, you know, and whether or not that warrants just having a, you know, another subcommittee that, you know, a group of 3 that is part of that process, so they're just aware, so we at least have a group there, so. Michael?
Who's the director of safety and security?
So we don't have an official director of safety and security. It's basically me.
Okay, yeah, I'm just reading through the policy. I was curious.
Yeah. I think at one point there was a district security and safety. Yeah.
Dave, what's his face?
Cutler.
Cutler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was before my time when they moved away from that position, so I can't
Yeah.
tell you the history there.
That's right. Over Dave.
Any other, go ahead, Megan.
I have a few questions. So thanks, Kevin. I certainly, when I brought up this an agenda item, could have never envisioned what this week would entail. So, you know, timely, certainly. Could you speak a little bit to staff training and sort of kind of how often that's happening and?
Yeah, that's happening on a yearly basis. It's, and I'm happy to share some of the examples of, you know, from, you know, whether it's a Tim Kiernan PowerPoint presentation or what we've done in some of our K2 schools, but it's happening on a regular basis. And I would say, you know, you don't think of like fire drills as safety drills, but they really are because it's just good practice of how to quickly get out of the building. Because generally the routes are the quickest way out of the building for students and staff. You know, there's bus evacuation drills. There's you know, lockdown or shelter in place drills. And then there's just some training we do with staff about, you know, different contingencies that potentially come up. And we have our, you know, sometimes our resource officers, sometimes other members of either the fire or police will come in, or emergency medical will come in to provide some training for our staff.
And are we consistently doing postmortems after events like yesterday? To
Yeah,
kind of
so this
assess the
morning we had a
situation?
meeting at Stacy Middle School with police, fire, and our building administration staff, and kind of went through the whole process and where we thought things went well, where we, you know, some areas where we might want to look into, you know, talking about some things.
And that would be in conjunction with the existing plan to the extent we'd like to change XYZ because we realize.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think each year we kind of look, we, you know, we touch base with both police and fire and, you know, say, you know, based on, you know, best practices, are there any changes we want to see made?
Got it. We wouldn't say that they're necessarily approving our plans. They're developed in collaboration with them. Is that the right way
I'd
to
say
think about
developed
it?
in collaboration.
Okay.
And I think they
helpful.
need to be because we all need to be on the same page.
Got it. Okay. That's helpful. Yeah, I would definitely like to take it offline just to understand more, but I appreciate you bringing that update. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Yes, Robin?
Just thinking about risk in general, do we have any types of teams or do we have the capacity in-house to be doing just preventative work? So thinking about just trying to prevent, you know, what obviously things happen, but trying to prevent like what happened at Stacy. And I'm just wondering what type of capacity we have in-house and just hearing, I guess I never really thought about the fact that we don't have a director of safety and security. So hearing that and just, do we have like safety committees at the schools where we're able to do this work and screen for different types of threats that might be present?
Yeah, every school has a crisis team, and you know they're kind of the core safety team as well. And I think, you know, what our real, I think, strength, advantage, or benefit is we have tremendous relationships with students, the community, parents, and a lot of times, like, so many things are prevented because of those relationships that we have, and, you know, information that we receive through a variety of channels that, again, I'm not going to speak about in detail publicly, but I think a lot of things do get, not necessarily like always critical incidents, but a lot of incidents do get stopped before they start because we just get information, or we're able to gather information ahead of time.
I think that's really good for us to just acknowledge that a lot of times we sometimes only hear about it when something does happen, so that there are things happening to try to prevent, you know, other issues from happening in
Yep.
schools.
Thank you. Brendan?
Are there any safety drills like around athletics or any other after-school programs? Like, so you mentioned like a fire drill is like a pretty typical in-school drill, but is there something for coaches, athletes after school that you do on a regular basis?
You know what? I'm not sure the answer to that question, so I don't want to answer it. But I'll find out and get back to you. I'm pretty sure that we do have plans for athletics and for music.
Sure.
I couldn't say like, you know, for just a smaller club we necessarily have anything for, but that's something I can follow up with you.
Yeah, and I guess like the second question, is that like an appropriate thing given more recent changes in events happening outside of school hours but on school property? So again, I'm sure it's the same answer, but
yeah.
In regard to what you said, like as an athlete and a member of the music department, we've never done any sort of drill, or I don't think even had a conversation regarding like that sort of safety or what we would do in that situation. It's never come up.
Okay.
So
That's I
I think
appreciate that.
that's worthwhile.
Yeah, I
though,
appreciate that
you know?
feedback because you think about even just something as simple as like a thunderstorm. Everyone has to leave the stadium, for example, and like seek shelter. But like there's obviously other events that can happen, and can that be something that be part of a training for for future, hopefully no future events, but if there are.
Yeah, and then for large gatherings, we do have plans in place.
Sure.
Like, if we have, an event at the high school stadium.
The High School
or
Musical.
in the
sure.
auditorium, those kinds of things.
Sure.
Michael?
Go
ahead, Michael.
School Safety Council, who's that?
So that's basically your crisis team at a school. It's generally your,
So I'm reading through the policy. Sounds like we're not following this policy at all. It actually concerns me a little bit. I think I'm agreeing with John. I think we need to do a deeper dive in this. It says in here that the superintendent will provide us an annual report and goals met and stuff like this, and there'll be some audits done, make sure that we're in compliance. And I'm sure we're doing a lot of it, but it doesn't seem like there's reading this policy, it tells us that there should be some kind of program at the administration level peering into the whole school to make sure everything's checkmarked and done. So, yeah, I think we should look into digging deeper rather than.
And what policy is that, Mike?
It's file EBC, Echo Bravo Charlie. I don't understand these at all. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Haley, did you have a question
Um,
or comment?
there was just I have a comment. It's more general, but I think that it's worthwhile to share that over the years, the protocols, the safety protocols, especially regarding lockdowns and shelter in places, have changed a lot. So I think that, like, for me personally as a student, the way that I've been taught and like conditioned to go through a lockdown and other sorts of protocols, it's very different from what I do now. Back in elementary school and middle school, like, the protocols have changed a lot, and I think that I think they've changed for the better, but it's worthwhile to note that, like, there are a lot of students who are still kind of conditioned with some old ways, so it might be worthwhile to just be more conscientious of that and try to really, like, get these new protocols into students' minds.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Go ahead, Michael.
I know we talked about this before, shelter in place versus lockdown. I guess there's like 3 to 5 different reasons why we shelter in place. I know when we had the shelter in place a few weeks ago, there was some concern, and when I heard it, I was like, when I think shelter in place, I think it's like you're in danger. And I talked to my wife, she's like, oh no, that happens all the time. What are you talking about? She's like, oh yeah, if they need to clear the hallways, they just say shelter in place. And so I think have the same language, but that's alarming to the community. Shelter in place to me denotes you're in danger, and I understand shelter in place and lockdown are 2 different protocols, but shelter in place is kind of scary. I would definitely recommend us coming up with a different name so it's a little bit friendlier, so it's not alarming for the community. Because when I heard that, my mind went right into shelter in place drills in the Marine Corps. I was like, hey, this is not good. But again, my wife was like, nah, it's fine. So just some thoughts there.
Thank you, Michael.
I had another comment regarding the words we use. So I think I'm not totally sure on this, but I think that there's been sort of a move away from using the term lockdown, just because if there's a threat, we don't want the immediate response of students to necessarily be like, we have to stay within our class, we have to stay in our building, depending on the situation. I think it's evolved over time to be a little bit more like thinking on your feet and assessing the situation and perhaps and going off of that. But
and that goes to too, where we don't want just one plan. We really want, like, if there's a true situation where students are in danger, we want them to get away from the danger.
yeah, so maybe just reassessing the words we use to describe those.
As always, we appreciate the student view. Any other questions there? Thank you. Well, Yeah, from my side, you know, obviously, you know, yesterday's situation was very, very unfortunate, very, you know, and emotionally charged from many levels, you know, but the staff did an outstanding job. You know, at the end of the day, all students were home. Obviously, some came home late just because of the bus situation, that because of the area had to be locked down. I think one of the I guess you could say the word complaints from amongst communities. Obviously, we're in social media age where social media reported far before we even had the ability to know all the information and get that information out. So, you know, the staff is trained to take care of our kids first, and we entrust that staff every day to do that very job. So to have them or want them to break away from that role just so we could get that information, I think is a little bit premature, or just not understanding from the community. So that's why I just making this statement that, you know, again, at the end of the day, all the students made it home because the staff did their job. And yes, it took an hour for that same staff to come to an understanding of what was going on and get that message out. So, you know, is there a way to get it out sooner? I don't know, right? And I think maybe that is a takeaway. But again, I feel like, again, the staff did what they were supposed to do first, and that was making sure that our students, our own kids that we have in, you know, some of us have in this room, that are at that school. So that's all.
Yeah, and that's always, and if you want me to transition to the Stacy event, I can do that. It seems like a good transition.
Sorry, yeah.
You know, and I said this yesterday, I think in some of my written communications out to the community, but I think yesterday was a great example of police, fire, emergency management, and school personnel working together collaboratively, dealing with an issue that it for a little while was very uncertain. And, you know, I think to Chris's point, you know, everybody, you know, made it home safely. You know, we had to hold, and I'll go through the timeline too, but we had to hold the students because we, you know, for a while we weren't sure what they were exposed to. And we wanted to make sure that medical personnel had an opportunity to assess students, because we didn't want to put a student on a bus or have them walk home and have a reaction to something that we weren't necessarily certain with. So let me walk through the timeline, and then I can open it up for questions or comments. And I've got some times for some things, and I've got approximate times for other things. It basically happened around a 2-hour window, a little over a 2-hour window from start to finish. At 1:35, students started going to the nurse's office complaining of coughing, burning sensations, sore throat, eye irritation. The principal, associate principal, and school resource officer started to see the students coming down to the nurse's office. They investigated. A couple of our staff members, unfortunately, were exposed to the pepper spray, which we weren't sure what it was at that particular time, the mace pepper spray. The resource officer indicated to Principal Lopez at 1:45 to pull the fire alarm to bring resources to the school. At that point, Principal Lopez called me. She was unfortunately exposed to the pepper spray, the mace. So she called me at 1:45. While this was happening, students were evacuated to the playground at Memorial Elementary School. I arrived on site at approximately 1:50. By that point, all students were accounted for. Teachers took attendance. They were moved to the playground area of Memorial Elementary School. We didn't want to bring them in a building because at that point we weren't certain what the issue was. And we began separating any students that were having, that were exhibiting any symptoms or issues. 3 students that were initially unaccounted for were dismissed, and they were able to check that and verify that in X2. Two variables that we were dealing with was, one was, you know, for a period of about an hour, 50 minutes to about an hour and 10 minutes, the substance was unknown. And the second variable we had to deal with was we were right around dismissal time. And you know, that's challenging. If you've done pickup at Stacy or Memorial Elementary School on a good day, it's very challenging because it's a very congested area. When students were waiting to be dismissed in the playground area, medical and health professionals were assessing students who were exposed to the mace, pepper spray, or indicated that they thought they might be exposed to the mace. Staff were broadly assessing whether or not students needed to be seen. Mental health professionals and our teachers were identifying students who may need additional support for a variety of reasons. And the administrative team was coordinating changes to the dismissal process, working with police to support the investigation of what actually happened, which was wrapped up very quickly. And we had the device on site that was used pretty quick, I think within like an hour and 10 minutes, and supporting fire and medical personnel by answering questions or supporting with student or family communication. Hazmat received the aerosol device used by the student. They were able to test it and confirmed it was, I think Mace is the company, and it was Mace pepper spray is what it was referred to. Initially, 11 individuals, 10 students, and 1 staff member went to the hospital for precaution and evaluation. Later that evening, 2 additional students went to the emergency room just to be evaluated. And again, we needed to shift dismissal so we could assess students before releasing them. I conferred with the the fire chief, who recommended that we couldn't let anybody go for the reasons I just stated. And so we basically said, hey, we're going to do the elementary runs, and the buses are going to come back after they finish with the elementary students. At this point, parents were starting to arrive, and and again, and it's about 3:30 to 3:48 in that time period, 3:50. We're connecting parents to students, and we basically set them into lines of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Again, they were in their last period classes, and so it took a little time sometimes to identify a student. We then released walkers, and when the buses arrived, students were dismissed the buses at about 3:48 p.m., which is a little, I'd say, when's dismissal, Stacy, Craig, about 2:17?
Yeah, so.
So it's an hour and a half after they typically, are dismissed. Hazmat cleared the building. We had our custodians during the evening do a more aggressive cleaning, a more enhanced cleaning of the area, which is the mezzanine area of the library. Craig, Kari Dodd, Rachel Driscoll, and I were in the office kind of debriefing a little bit and figuring out next steps. And this morning we had additional counseling resources in place to support any students requiring it. And we had a debrief with Milford Fire, Milford Police, and our building-based administration.
Any questions or comments in regards to that timeline?
I do.
Yes.
So, Kevin, can you send us something, putting that timeline kind of in writing, but off in the second column saying what communications were.
Yeah, I can do that. I don't have that right here with me.
No, I don't expect it right now.
Yeah.
But, for the purpose of analyzing for future benefits, because some of the complaints that I had, I'm sure we all had some in fears, if not complaints, that their kids got home, they were home for 10 minutes off the bus before they even were made aware of this. And I'm not saying that's accurate, but that's their perception. So if you can interject sort of, or
Yeah, I can take this. Yep.
Right, yeah, that's close. I know what the word I'm looking for.
What word did you use, Megan?
Overlay, I don't know.
Yeah, it's close. That's better than mine.
Add a column.
But yeah, just put in, what the communications were and in detail, like what you sent, or whoever sent it, if it wasn't you, if it was an administrator, fellow
Yep.
administrator.
No, I can definitely
So
do
we
that.
can get a better
Mhm.
perception on that, and, because I think I think the whole community appreciates the response from everybody in the district, everybody in the town, the fire chief and his whole department, police and their whole department, and including the state responders that, the fire chief called in.
Yep.
I don't know what they call it, decontamination unit or whatever from Worcester. So it was very, very quickly responded to and effectively. I think everybody appreciates that. And then there's just the communication aspect, and if we can just sort of get the full explanation of what was communicated when, and just so we can build on it if there ever is another situation. Hopefully there's not.
Yep, I can definitely do that.
Yeah, just going along with what John's saying, I think just hearing all of the steps that took place, not just yesterday but today too, getting the counselors in place, much was done for this unexpected situation, and I think a lot of good work and really great collaboration throughout the town. Going along with what John said, though, if I could just actually ask to push it a little bit further, and so knowing the communication, so I think it's important to know when things were sent, but also by whom and what modality, because I know one of the questions was, like, when emails were going out, was there any delay, things like that. So I do think, for just sake of transparency, it would be helpful for us to be able to say, we sent out this communication at this time, we realized you didn't receive it until this time, but I know that just from what I've heard and what I've seen, there's some questions about that. So knowing, like, what communications were from central office as opposed to Stacy directly, what mode of communication, was it talking points or email, and just like generally by whom, not necessarily a person, but again, central office or Stacy, I think would be beneficial.
Yep, could definitely do that.
So one thing I wanted to clarify about the timeline. So I had heard from my sister at the middle school that a shelter in place was called right before the fire alarm was pulled. Were you aware of that?
I'm not sure that happened or that was true. That's something I would have to check.
Okay, because I guess that was something that was a little alarming to me, just because there's a bit of a conflict there. You know, if students are told to shelter in place, like to not go out into the hallway, and then they're told to evacuate. So that was just something.
Yeah, my understanding is once they determined there was an issue, they evacuated the building.
Thank you. Brendan?
Yeah, just a comment. Thank you. I mean, that was incredibly difficult to deal with. I don't know if everyone in the room was aware. At the same time, there was a suspected gas leak at the youth center.
The fire chief was painfully aware of that.
Yeah. So like the resources were stretched extremely thin. So thank you all. You know, like that was professionalism at its best, and that's, you know, a credit to you, your team, everyone, the students included. I know it's never perfect, but thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the school safety side or the events of from Stacy yesterday?
So if I can just close with one thing
course, please.
again, and I can't thank folks enough, but I want to say, like, Milford Fire, Milford Police, the emergency responders, the state responders, our staff was incredible. And one of the things that I think folks that, you know, unfortunately I deal with this stuff on a semi-regular basis, and a lot of folks don't, because like we might have one issue at one school one year, an issue at another school another year, but the staff were incredibly calm and reassuring to the students. And I think that's, you know, I don't want to overlook that, because I think these situations are very stressful for adults too, and I think folks did an incredible job. And I think, you know, we have some people that respond to things on a somewhat regular basis, like our police, our fire, and some of our administrators, but our teachers, our nurses, our behavioral assistants, our teaching assistants, our counselors all did just an exceptional job. And I think the working together was the most important thing. Like, we just have a great working relationship, which isn't always the case in some communities. There's some communities where, you know, the fire chief walks in and the superintendent turns their head the other way. You know, so I think there's real value in the positive relationships we have with, you know, our fire department and our police department, because we're one team and we operate that way. And I think it's very apparent we operate that way. And, you know, there's different lanes we have to walk in, and there's things that, you know, I have to do versus the police chief versus the fire chief. But the collaboration and the coordination, I think, is exceptional, and it leads to, you know, generally very good outcomes when we have these types of situations. And I don't want to overlook that, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Moving on, our report from the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, Dr. Consigli.
Thank you. A couple weeks ago, myself, Caridad Lopez, principal at Stacy, and Alyssa Holland were invited on behalf of MCIA to be a part of this convening, and I'd like to read to you a little bit about the convening. So what it's about is partners from across the nation are working together to bring key constituents for a meeting in June to reimagine and take steps towards a future of equitable, learner-centered school quality systems. When our systems are equitable and student-centered, they ensure each learner is supported in discovering and using their assets to build their desired future. Our current assessment and accountability systems, while well-meaning, have failed to deliver this support. In fact, They're among the most cited barriers for learning communities working to center each learner. The Trailblazers Summit will bring together learner-centered voices from across the nation to build a bold new vision for assessing school quality, one that honors the unique context of each learning community while also ensuring the quality of every learner's experience. This vision, informed by practice and insights from Trailblazers in the field, will lead to a set of co-created recommendations to our nation's leader, setting the course for the future of assessment and accountability. So I think to be invited to be a part of that is exciting, and I think it builds upon what we've been saying over the last couple meetings with our work with MCIA, that we are getting nationally recognized for the work that we're doing. So I'm looking for the support of the committee to be a part of this. It's totally funded by MCIA. And we're gonna go and present and explain what we're doing over here.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments?
Just a comment after, I think Haley was sharing a few of the ideas that have come up, and the majority of those I think were identified or discussed, Craig, when we did the NGLC, learning walks. And so I think the importance of collaboration it screams out to me. So I would absolutely be in support of additional work to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, so looking for a motion to approve the out-of-state travel for the three individuals?
Yes.
For three individuals, dated June 6th through June 8th, 2023. So, motion by Megan, second by Robin. All in favor? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, moving on. Next agenda item, report from our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Human Resources, Ms. Ferry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have for the committee's approval this evening 7 warrants in the amount of $1,030,961.10.
Motion to approve the warrant. Motion by Robin, second by Brendan. All in favor? It is unanimous. Good.
Under the FY23 budget update, I wanted to just let the school committee know that at one of our previous meetings, we talked about the high school roof and the warranties of all our other roofing systems. And so I did reach out. I have secured all of the warranty dates for all of our roofs. However, if in fact we wanted to do a renewal on the high school roof, which expires September of 2023, they had been waiting for a reach out from Rob to do or the previous director of facilities, to do a moisture accumulation test. So they will not renew or warranty our roof without it. So the order has been released. It is in the amount of $13,750. So I have executed that contract so that we could get that done to view our options for the high school roof. The next roof comes offline, which, believe it or not, is Woodland, and that comes offline in December of 2024. The memorial roof comes offline August of 2025, and the Brookside roof November of 2027. In Stacy, I cannot bind, so that one I'm having a little bit of a difficult time. It's obviously not with Tremco, so we've got some time. Other than Woodland will be the following fiscal year. It also came to my attention that the memorial elevator has been down for over a month and a half, and they did reach out. We have a quote to repair that elevator, as Lisa is desperate for her students. They should be out. I believe I released that purchase order on April 18th, and they will be coming out to fix the elevator in the amount of about $6,000. So those are the big facility issues that we've had without the director. So I'm trying to put together some information so that when the new person comes on board, they'll have, the walking steps to move forward. I did give the committee a budget update for FY23 as well. We do have some areas of concern, one being transportation, but we have been fortunate that we've had a lot of maternities and teachers who have left mid-year, so we do have a bulk of that under our instruction line to offset the deficit. We had one teacher that just comes to mind that at the Stacy School took a full year leave and her salary was over $100,000. So it's not difficult to accumulate a $400,000 surplus in our instruction line with the salaries that we have for teachers. So that, I believe, I'm feeling confident that we will make our fiscal year in total and not have a deficit issue. The FY24 budget update would be that we are scheduled on our next agenda to do the budget hearing for our FY24 budget, which has to be announced so many days before the town meeting. So we will be doing the new figure that was approved at FinCom last night formally on May 11th. The committee has a list of the latest appointments from our previous meeting. We do have an out-of-state travel request from Jen Norjanian, who the travel will be funded strictly by a grant. So she is asking for the school committee's approval to travel on October 17th through October 20th. And she has detailed very, with much information for your review.
Robin, go
I
ahead.
have a question about that. So in her letter, she says cost to the district, but that is just through the grant. It's not anything that, okay.
Correct. It's really approving her time away.
Thank you for that question, Robin. Sure. So, looking then for a motion and a vote to approve the out-of-state travel request. Motion by Megan, second by John. All in favor? That is unanimous. So, Kathy,
And
you're
there-
very efficient with your. So I'm just going to revert back. Does anybody have any questions on the FY23? Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, it's good to hear that it's going to balance more than likely with being able to shift money. But what's the reasoning behind transportation, athletics, and even school security? Why are those so far offline?
Transportation, I still think there's a learning curve for the new transportation director. Routing is very difficult, and when you have, it's not the same routing as the yellow buses. So you really need to build a capacity to understand your special ed, non-local, and local routes.
Okay.
So I feel as though whether we get a mentor or something to help the new director to understand ways to kind of combine routing. And I am putting together with Jim, I want to do a transportation bid. So we don't have to by law. Special ed transportation is exempt. It's one of the exemptions. But I think if we know all the trips that we have May and June for the following school year, we should go out and do each one and go out to bid with all our local vendors. And whoever is bidding the lowest should really be getting the route.
Is that number of like wages or rentals, like the whole package of bringing more people in to cover these routes than we have?
We do have a plan to bring additional buses online, and that is an offset in our 2024 budget. But as the deficit started to grow, it was too fast for us to try to mitigate by buying additional vans, unfortunately.
What about school security? What's that about?
School security was the addition of staff.
Oh, okay.
At Stacy mid-year, we added some additional hall monitors, so we do have to make that deficit up, but that was approved.
Thanks.
So I have a question, Chris.
Yes, please go ahead.
So Kathy, can you go back to the roofs, but specifically the high school roof? I mean, we sat here a year ago and we had, what's it called, Tremco? What's it?
Tremco.
We had them in here, they gave us a report, a history, and, you know, what their action plan is when there is an incident, but we haven't really gained any traction in the past 12 months, right?
No,
We were
and
talking then about
I
the-
was unaware that had not been addressed. So hopefully we'll have all our information in time and they'll be able to book the moisture testing.
Yeah, and it felt like we were at the 11th hour a year ago, I think, and here we are a year forward, and we're past the 11th hour, so. you have
As soon as I
confidence that they
hear,
can-
I'll give the committee an update because we'll have renewal options, but as of right now, I don't have a date.
Yeah, if anybody out there listening, this is about extending the warranty on a 20-year warranty, was it, on the high school roof?
It was a 20-year warranty, and so I think we'd love to have something around 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, because the alternative is to
10.
pay for an individual repair if we're out of warranty, quickly surpasses the cost of the warranty.
I think this roof is, what, 215,000 square feet?
That's correct.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of rocks.
And Kevin, I was gonna say, how did you know to that number,
Because I've
but through
been
the SOI?
digging through the SOI for the last 3 months.
So, 13,000 for the moisture, assessment.
209,000 square
I don't
feet in
think
the
it's too
building.
bad. When we're talking that amount of square footage, we just gotta get it done.
600 windows.
5 acres of building space.
Matt, hurry up.
I'm into it.
I don't know if this is gonna be a hurry up.
I know all the valves that are leaking at Woodland, we got the gym floor issue. So, yeah, it's, by me kind of handling all this, when the new person comes in, it's just information for them, here's where I've experienced some issues.
Maybe you should be facilities director.
No.
Just one more comma to your.
And I know the Woodland playground is in poor shape, so I've gotta figure out how we can get that equipment fixed, because,
Yeah.
it's not good.
Where was I going? I'm a little bit baffled at how an elevator is down for a month and a half.
Yeah,
What-
I had no idea.
I assume you're looking into how this communication breakdown. I mean, this obviously was not just a one person didn't do something about a situation.
Well, there
Follow-ups,
was-
tickets, reports. I don't know how an elevator is down that way.
I
You
don't
know,
know that I'd make
when
that
I
assumption, but.
When I reached out to the vendor, part of the issue was that there was 12
Yeah.
months of invoices not processed. So they really didn't want to work with us until they got those invoices processed.
I'll look into that. That's a fair response.
Yes, but, we've been with them for so long. I just said, look, and I promised payment within a couple weeks, please come out. So I hope it's soon.
And those are invoices you never saw,
No,
to be clear, for anybody watching,
no.
Fantastic.
for our own clarity.
All right. I'll be done now.
That's fine. Any other questions on FY '23 budget? Yep.
Can you just touch on the athletics, Kathy?
Athletics, Peter has, well, first of all, if I remember correctly when I looked, let me just refresh. There's a lot encumbered there. So it may not be a full deficit so a lot of that might drop down. The other key pieces, and I did not look, I wanted to, but between athletic revolving, which is still having receipts come in with tickets,
Okay.
I think it's just a balance of shifting some of those expenses to the appropriate line. I just have not done that yet.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks.
No problem.
But I won't shift the expenses if at the end of the year we can
The aggregate
account
is
for them.
More than $10,000.
All right. Any other questions, FY '23 budget? Question, go ahead, Robin.
So I'm just thinking back to what we said about the transportation services, and I absolutely recognize and understand that coming into a new role, mentoring might be necessary. I'm wondering though if just moving ahead, because we could have a new transportation director in a few years, right? Just having a way that we're not gonna have a major learning curve each time we have a new person in that role, especially just looking at how big that number is. I don't know, it's just something to maybe just think about, again, proactively, what type of onboarding would we put in place?
And I would say it's probably a little more complicated than Kathy's presenting, because I think
Okay.
there's other factors in terms of like needs of the students on particular routes and where folks are going. So I think it's very complicated as part of the issue.
Yeah, just anything we can do preventatively to not have that number again, I think would be beneficial.
One more thought on that aspect, because I do know that the director of transportation is also director of community use. this also potentially a situation where he's trying to gather all of these pieces at once, and should there be a discussion at some point of whether or not those two be split? Is transportation getting so complicated and so complex at this point that
It's
focus
something
should
that
be
we've
100%?
brought up as a concept previously. So yeah, I think it's something we could look at maybe for.
Here comes some history.
No, it's just story time. No, okay. I think it needs a real close look on whether these roles should be separated in individual roles, because it worked well for a lot of years, and I think the challenges in each role have grown drastically in the past few years, at least in this community, with transportation. So I think it should be a discussion soon.
And I would like to grow, everybody knows my speech on this, but I would like to grow more in-house routing with our own buses, because it really.
It's much more cost effective.
Oh, it's so cost effective.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I mean, there's the federal grant, $400 million federal grant for electric buses right now.
Worcester just got 20 of them.
Yeah, are we applying for that?
All right, well, here's the issue
Sorry,
with that.
yeah.
I did some homework on that.
I'm sure
Brendan.
there's always something, right?
So right now, one yellow bus to replace is $80,000.
Yeah.
If we go forward with this grant, one bus to replace in the future
It's
is
a lot more.
$380,000.
And those batteries degrade fairly
Exactly. You have
fairly
to have
quickly.
charging stations.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's a lot.
There's a lot of infrastructure that needs to happen
Yes,
to support
a lot
it.
of infrastructure.
I think that's something we're going to definitely look at in the future,
Yeah.
because we're starting to see the cost of electric vehicles, like cars.
They're coming
go
down. Yeah.
And I think you're going to see that in buses, and
Yep.
you're starting to see more trucks and SUVs that
Yeah,
are
I mean-
electric too. But
Yeah.
I think it's early to jump into that, because I think it's great initially.
I mean, cold affects battery life.
Yes.
There's a ton of things, but it's free money.
Yeah.
It is free money.
And it's
Yeah.
something
It does
we've
come
explored
with-
and looked
yeah.
at, because there's been a
Yeah.
couple of them over the last couple of years.
Because even if you don't like the electric, once those do
Go.
you can go back to the gas, and you just got a free bus for the X amount of years.
I think those grant funds will be available for the next 4 years. So it's definitely something to explore, and especially if you go with maybe a two-role decision, that someone could really concentrate on that. That might be the best way to.
And we do have a new battery plant in town, so maybe they'll donate some new batteries to us. Not the experimental, the beta version, not the alpha.
Excellent. All right. Focus back in here
Sorry.
for a second. That's all right.
We're getting giddy.
Exactly.
Yep.
All right. So anything more on FY? Where we at? FY 23 budget. We're good. FY 24 again. Yeah. So just want to publicly just thank the finance subcommittee, Mike Nicholson and his team. There was just some back and forth email wise for some questions. So kind of a little bit of an unprecedented year this year where we didn't have to have multiple meetings with them. So just appreciate their vetting of it. They gave a highly recommended budget there to the full FinCom. Full FinCom had voted, unbeknownst to me, to accept that budget. So actually, Wednesday night meeting.
They're all blending.
Yeah,
Chris,
they're all blending. Wednesday night's meeting was just to approve the kindergarten ad. So again, thank you to the finance committee for their support in our budget for the next upcoming year.
Chris, if I can, I'd just
Yes.
like to echo that, because I've sat on this committee for a long time with multiple education subcommittees from FinCom, and Mike Nicholson and the others on there. I'd like to name them all, but I'm going to forget somebody. I know there's 3 or 4, but I don't want to leave anybody out. They've been engaged since day one of our budget discussion. They came here on Saturday morning, the second Saturday, depends on when the year was, whatever it was, January 7th or 9th. And they've been engaged the entire process, which is very much appreciated, and I can't thank them enough for doing that, because that hasn't always been the case historically, and it's, again, I very much appreciate it. I'm sure everyone here does, but I just wanted to call that out because they have put in a ton of time into our discussions and digesting them.
Thank you, Joe. All right. Moving on to the acceptance of gifts. So we have a few gifts, some very generous gifts tonight, so I want to give them their time. The first, the donor is the Mass Cultural Council Program. It was written by Stephen E. Matthews, and the purpose of this gift is for the third graders at the zoo in the amount of $2,300. I'm going to read through them all, and then we'll vote as one package. The next donor was for a school store, and this is a gift in kind for the amount of $100 in apparel for the a math acceleration prize. The next gift, the donor was Heaney and Small, a gift in kind. This is a set of AirPods in the value of $100 for the a math acceleration prize. The next donor was Chris Shabbat, and this is $75 worth of gift cards, again for the a math acceleration prize. Next donor was Caitlin Small for $100 in gift cards for, again, the math acceleration prize. Next one is David and Janice Kowal, and the name of the gift is Family and Community Network Gift, in the amount of $20, and this will be for programs, events, and playgroups. And our last one, Stephen Tokus, and this is for the Family and Community Network, the amount of $15 for programs, events, and playgroups. So we thank all these donors tonight. We really appreciate their generosity, and I will look for a motion to accept these gifts. Motion by Michael, second by Robin, all in favor, and that is unanimous. Excellent.
If I can just make a comment, if I'm not mistaken, a few of those are teachers that are contributing to, like, they're teaching over vacation and they're making now donations so that they can provide their students gifts. I just don't want that to go unnoticed because that's just really remarkable to me. So I just want to thank them.
Thank you for those additional words. We appreciate that. All set from your corner?
Yes,
Mr.
thank
All
you.
right, very good. All right, next agenda item is our subcommittee updates. Anything from the subcommittee world? Go ahead, Ron.
The policy subcommittee met prior to this, and we had a nice presentation from Lisa Kincaid. We heard about bringing in a policy around having therapy dogs in the schools, so we're going to continue making some revisions to the proposed policy for that, and then we'll bring it forward to the committee for a first read. And then we've continued to review policies around fiscal management, I guess, if you will. So that's what we did tonight.
Excellent, great, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, any other subcommittees?
Health and safety, Matt, Chris, and now
Yeah.
I'm sort of reflecting on all of our discussions, thinking about the safety piece, and I
Yeah.
feel like it tends to be more specific issues, so it might be interesting to kind of broaden that discussion, Kevin, as that group meets. I do think that some of the issues or challenges they raise have been lagging a little bit, but I think it's probably primarily a personnel issue, so I expect that those will kind of get cleaned up in the near future, but just a productive meeting by that group.
Great, thank you. Yes,
Sorry, that was
your
future open.
future, okay. Any other subcommittee updates? All right, future agenda items, this side of the room?
Yes,
Go ahead, John.
I don't know if it'd be more appropriate at the subcommittee level or at the full committee level, but I know the subcommittee explored the fundraising policy or lack of one a year or so ago, and there's been enough events that have come up and enough issues brought to my attention that I'd like to revisit that.
Okay, very well.
And I'll let you decide whether it's full committee or just the subcommittee.
I'd recommend policy, John, only because there was a lot of discussion around that, and I'd recommend probably, Kevin, that we convene kind of the same participants in light of some recent events, John, just to kind of attack it from that angle first.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I think that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, and obviously, yeah, there was a little bit of a change up on policy subcommittee. So if you need to feel
Happy
like you want to
participate in-
attend
yeah, absolutely.
on that, let me know.
I don't know if Jen Parson would be willing to come back to the table.
Probably
That
not.
I don't know, yeah, exactly. So, all right, sorry, Megan, did you have
I was just
something
going to ask for a future agenda item, Chris, probably not the next meeting, but maybe the next one, just an update on our plan for the roof in terms of where we sit, and just to make sure that we feel really ahead of that for the fall.
else? Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up, John.
Michael?
Look at the budget, it looks like community use revolving accounts getting pretty low and half the revenue as usual. So I think it'd be nice to hear from Jim, see how it's going, what's going on in the next meeting or two.
Okay, got that?
And if I can just be clear, I don't have any real timeline on, you know, asking for this policy review, just to keep it on your radar.
Also light on the timeline, I know we have some bigger ones coming up in our not so distant future, but just to revisit that transportation roles means whether or not that position needs to be split at some point, maybe over this summer would be a good idea.
Okay. Anything else? Not seeing anything. Very good. All of that. Appreciate that, everybody. All right, so that moves us on to adjournment. And then we will actually be adjourning to executive session next. So at this time, we'll be ending the open session of our meeting to enter executive session, where we will discuss a non-union contract review and also consider and discuss allegations possibly resulting in the disciplinary action against a school employee. We will not be returning to open session, and this does require a roll call vote. Start over with Matt.
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. So thank you and good night.